Hello and welcome. You're watching FYI. I'm Rishika Barua. According to a report by a Swiss group that ranks cities based on their air quality, Delhi was the most polluted capital city in the world in 2020, and this is a distinction that Delhi has earned now for 3 consecutive years. This report measures cities in terms of the PM 2.5 levels that can enter the organs and cause a lasting damage, and Delhi is number 1. So this week, the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal inaugurated the country's first smog tower in Delhi's Connaught place with an aim to improve the capital's air quality. This is a pilot project at the moment, and if it is successful, then more smog towers will be installed in the national capital. But each tower costs 20 crore rupees and impacts a 1 kilometer radius. So if you do a rough math, Delhi will need around 2.5 million such towers to actually be able to cover the entire area of the national capital and clear the air. Before we get into the merits of this, let's break down for you what is a smog tower. A smog tower is like any other tower made of steel or cement. It is designed to work essentially as an air purifier. It is fitted with layers of air filters and industrial grade fans. These electrostatic air filters can actually filter out smoke, dust and even pollen particles. So it can actually filter out even the tiny particles of dust and pollen. The government claims that these towers that it's planning to set up in several other areas as well purifies around 1000 cubic meter of air per second and can influence the air quality in a 1 kilometer radius from where the tower has been set up. So how does a smog tower actually work? Well, very simply put, and this is an oversimplification in a certain sense, it uses an air cleaning system. So the polluted air is essentially sucked in at the top of the tower. It is then passed through filters, industrial grade filters and fans that are installed, and then the filtered air is then released from the bottom of the tower. So that's roughly the technology that a smog tower is based on. On the show today, but we look to answer a slightly more complicated question. Is this an actual solution to pollution, or is it just an expensive gimmick? Because many experts have actually come out and been very critical of the Delhi government's move. We have Dr. Bhargav Krishna, currently a faculty at the Public Health Foundation of India, also the co-founder of Care for Air. We have Saurabh Bharadwaj, MLA and spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party. Tanushree Ganguly, Program Lead, Council on Energy, Environment and Water. Ronak Sutaria, founder of Respirer Living Sciences. Thank you all very much for being with us on the show. Saurabh Bharadwaj, I want to begin by asking you first, the rationale of this move. It's 20 crore rupees for a tower. The rough estimates show that Delhi is going to need over 2 million such towers if we actually have some kind of a shot at cleaning the air.
One thing is that Delhi government doesn't claim that erecting smog towers is the only solution for working on the pollution in Delhi. And are you able to listen to me?
Yes. Sorry, we couldn't hear you. No, we couldn't hear you very clearly. So I urge you to repeat yourself, please.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that this smog tower is not the only solution for Delhi's pollution problem. This is one of the measures which Delhi government is doing. And because this is a kind of a new thing which is happening in India, obviously there will be criticism, and we are open for any kind of criticism. Look, we are not the experts in this. We have a lot of panel experts in this channel debate, and obviously there are a lot of other experts who are out there, and we are all open for all kind of criticism, all kind of suggestions. But I just want to say that Delhi, if you compare to any state in India, we have been doing a lot in terms of, first, we have closed all the thermal power plants in Delhi. There are thermal power plants running in Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, all surrounding Delhi. We have closed ours. In Delhi, all the factories which used to run on coke are now run on PNG, although all our neighboring states are still doing the same. We don't use generators. Most of the power supply in Delhi is 24/7, so we are no more dependent on that.
Okay.
And because of a lot of things like, encouraging electric vehicles and things like that, this is not my data. the central government's data says, and they have put it in as an affidavit in Supreme Court, that we in Delhi have been able to reduce PM 2.5 by 25% in 3.5 years. This is one of the solutions which was discussed in Supreme Court, and Honorable Supreme Court wanted us to erect one and let it be studied by the experts. I am not an expert. If experts say that this is not a good solution, we'll agree to it. We'll find a good solution. We'll move for a better solution. If this can give some kind of, help, we will try to, replicate it at more places.
Well, as I said at the very outset, this is a pilot project at the moment. The Delhi government, is going to examine the efficacy of these smog towers and then actually, decide on whether there is merit in erecting more such towers, because it is, after all, a huge investment to make. Let me also bring in my other panelists, some of the experts. Dr. Krishna, if I can come to you at the moment, the entire technology of smog towers, this entire idea essentially has been borrowed in a certain sense from China. Beijing has a lot of this, a lot of other Chinese cities also have this. Has it worked there?
Thank you for having me, Rishika. I think the evidence that we can see globally is that smog towers really have marginal, if at all, any effect. I think the equivalent that we could use as an analogy is essentially if you were to take a vacuum cleaner to a desert and try to clean up the place, right? Because the kind of air pollution that you face in winter in Delhi, it's these kinds of smog towers. I think you mentioned the number yourself. You need 2.5 million of these to have any kind of significant effect on air quality in Delhi. There is really no global evidence. I'm glad that the Aam Aadmi Party and the Delhi government are clear that this is a pilot and that data would be generated and analyzed by experts. Hopefully that data would be made public as well so that it would be analyzed by independent experts who can then verify that this actually has any efficacy, because 20 crores is a huge amount of money. There's a second tower that's supposed to be coming up later this year, which is funded by the central government. And based on mandates from the Supreme Court, we could potentially see these elsewhere around the country if this sort of approach continues.
Right. Tanushree Ganguly, one of the big fears is that, while we experiment with technology like smog towers, where, the evidence, or rather whether it works or not works, at least in Delhi, is yet to be seen, we might be compromising on other more plausible solutions. And I want to once again, while we're talking about smog towers, not deviate from the larger issue of the fact that Delhi has earned this notorious distinction of being the world's most polluted capital now for 3 years in a row. Is this really a worthy investment? Should the government be putting its money elsewhere?
Thank you for having me on the show, Rishika. So, I'd start by saying that first and foremost, the most critical thing about this tower is going to be the data which comes out once we start evaluating its impact. While I understand that Aam Aadmi Party has very clearly maintained its stand that this is going to be a pilot, and only if there is impact, the numbers will be increased. But the issue here is that other states have started sort of taking cue. So we have multiple wind augmentation purification units, which are also outdoor filtration systems coming up in NCR cities. Bangalore got a smog tower earlier this year. I was looking up Mumbai's clean air plan, and they've said that, they want to deploy wind augmentation purification units at major urban traffic intersections, and this would require funding of up to 25 crores. So even if this is being pitched as a pilot, other cities are taking cue, and potentially these experiments will be conducted across the country. And without legitimate evidence of impact, making such huge investments on one particular solution which has not been tested out is really not advisable. And to answer your question on what could be some of the other avenues where this money is spent, of course, the first thing that we need to understand is particularly in a city state like Delhi, there are multiple agencies which are responsible for various kinds of aspects of controlling pollution. So of course, while monitoring can be taken care of the Delhi Pollution Control Committee, waste management has to be taken care by the municipal corporations. Then the Department of Transport needs to take care of, procurement of buses and intensifying public transport, and overall planning of the city, which then falls under the ambit of the DDA. So coordination is key when it comes to, legit, proper planning for air quality in the city. And I really feel that there are a couple of things which can be prioritized over technological fixes which have not been really proven. One is generating a little of evidence on what's polluting Delhi's air a little more periodically. If you see, we had an emission inventory that came out in 2018. We've not had any updates to that emission inventory. Even if we are coming out with solutions to address air pollution in Delhi, that needs to get reflected in the number. So we need to see how the emission load is changing, periodically. So these studies need to happen more periodically. Secondly, I know that, Delhi government has tried out these real-time source apportionment / chemical characterization studies. The evidence from these studies needs to come out a little more clearly.
Right.
So there was a summer study, there was a winter study. What really is causing pollution? One of our recent studies, so we looked at numbers from a group called Urban Emissions who do predictive analysis for what's polluting, a city's airshed. And we found that during the winters, there is a significant load coming from simply biomass burning, from the additional space heating requirements. So what is being done to kind of rehabilitate?
So you're saying train energy and resources also into identifying the cause better, and more research needs to be put out into the public domain, because this is an expensive solution to the air pollution problem, and we're going to need millions of these stars, for just Delhi alone. So can we actually think of this as a solution for the air pollution problem pan-India? Well, more questions and answers on that. But Ronak Sutaria, the other question here is one of sustainability. 40 industrial grade fans per tower, over 5,000 filters to filter out small and big particles, and all of this to impact just 1 kilometer radius. Is it sustainable to actually go ahead with a solution like this?
I mean, I think, Rishika, that's a good question. I mean, frankly, the 20 crore price tag has been put out, but what has not been put out is the operational cost. What is it going to cost the city on a daily basis? Because this is, not something which is going to run for an hour or two. I mean, air quality will need to be filtered 24/7. Just a back of the envelope calculation tells you that a 2-meter fan consumes about 1 kilowatt hour, which is about 1 ton AC's costing. That's per hour. Now, the fans which we are just looking at, they are definitely not 2 meter. They look much, much bigger. No specifications have been put out. I'm sure they are there. The government wouldn't have built this without very rigorous and, very, very reputed agencies are involved in building this. But what is the monthly or even a daily cost of running this is one point. You showed the graph of, and we are just talking of the smog tower here. There are many different technologies which can kick in.
Yes.
But before the air goes from the fan to the filters, there's going to be a significant, something called an ESP, which will kick in, which is extremely power intensive. So the footprint of this, and today, the IPCC report has come out, net zero is the term being used. And this is very, very far from net zero. This is going to give you a carbon footprint which has not been put out by the government, which it should, because essentially what you're doing is the location where you've installed this, you're taking probably the emissions for that, 100 meters might come down, but this is going to create an emissions load on another part of the city or the state or the region, which is going to be giving the power to this thing. The other thing is, the government keeps saying this is an experiment, but they've really not defined it in some kind of quantitative terms. This 1 kilometer radius impact. Are there any simulation studies which tell us that this is really how effective it is? Should we look at a number which is 5% reduction, 10%, 20%? A lot of reputed research names have been put in, but no data, no specification sheet for an equipment has been put out, which is usually a starting point for understanding what's really going on. And I think the government, because 20 crores is not a small number. Most cities in India are getting 10 crores for their entire clean air budget. Their entire clean air budget is 10 crores. Here you're talking of putting one equipment at 20 crores, and probably the 100 crores will just fly out in no time.
Saurabh Bharadwaj, a lot of important points, being raised there, and I think one of the big questions is operating cost. Is it really viable? Because it's a very expensive proposition even for the government, and we know that central government's also putting out one or whatever. But is this really a viable solution? Can this money be better spent in solving the pollution problem? Is the larger question. Saurabh
Obviously, there can be a lot of solutions which can be thought for reducing pollution, and I think we have been discussing it for last 15-20 years, how to reduce pollution, and there are a lot of experts in the country, in the world, who are talking about it, and the government is consulting experts, trying to come up with, for example, that biodegradable solution which we came out with, which is for the parali, stubble, for converting stubble into manure. That was also started like a experiment, and it worked very well in Delhi. If our neighboring states also use that solution in Punjab, Haryana, and Uttar Pradesh, probably that stubble burning pollution which hits
Delhi in October,
November.
but I'm talking very specifically about this technology. This is a new technology that you're experimenting with. I mean, from the panel of experts, honestly, one has heard more cons than pros. It's not worked in China. The operating cost is extremely high. You're going to need millions of these towers in Delhi alone. So it doesn't look like it's going to be a very sustainable solution.
Obviously, whenever there is a new technology, there should be criticism, and we welcome all kinds of criticism. We are open for all kinds of criticism, and in a way, 20 crore is a huge money. But I think in another way, one road which is of 3 kilometers or probably 5 kilometers, to just relay that road, you get to pay 20 crore rupees. So yes. There will be criticism, there will be feedback, and whatever is the study, there is University of Minnesota,
yes,
and there are IITs which are studying it, and there are a lot of learned people who will be studying it, and it's our money. It's public money.
I have to take a break here, but I think it is really appreciated, the fact that you're open to criticism, to opinions that may be different from yours, and the fact that this is a pilot, and whether or not more such towers are erected, is going to be based on data that's collected from this one. And like the experts said, we hope that data is made public. On the other side of the break, though, I will ask our experts another big question. Is this a quick fix? Will it work in the short term, even if it doesn't in the long term? We'll look to answer that question on the other side of a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking about smog towers. Is it a quick fix? Let me quickly get in a word from our experts. Dr. Krishna, do you believe that it could be a quick fix? I mean, it is desperate times as far as Delhi's air crisis is concerned. Can this be a quick fix for certain pockets where the PM 2.5 levels, rise beyond the dangerous levels?
Okay, I think quick fixes are a kind of dangerous road to take, right? Because the focus kind of ends up being on the quick fix over the sort of systemic issues that we really have to tackle if we want to address air pollution, not just in Delhi, but in the rest of the country. We've already heard that this will address air quality issues within a 1 kilometer radius of where it's installed. How effectively across the entire 1 kilometer radius, we don't know. Perhaps you just need to be standing right next to it for it to have any effect on the air quality that you're breathing in. We don't know yet, right? Because until we have data, we can't really tell. For me, as somebody who works on both the environmental side as well as public health angle of this work, it's imperative that this kind of solutioneering when it comes to air pollution doesn't take over discourse, and we really focus on the broader systematic issues that we need to work on, whether it be reducing emissions from transport sources, reducing construction dust, reducing emissions from thermal power and industrial sources, and other sort of point sources that Ronak referred to earlier during winter, for instance. So all of these sources need addressing. I take Tanushrী's point from earlier that we probably need more granular and more regular data on what the sources of various sources of air pollution are in Delhi. But I think we broadly know what the largest buckets are. We know that transport, we know industrial emissions, we know thermal power plant emissions, we know dust. These are the four sources. We know where they come from and we know what to do about it now. I think it's probably best if we continue focusing on those and sort of longer term targets.
So you're saying in a certain sense that there is no quick fix to the air pollution crisis, and therefore one can't look at the smog towers, set it up in areas where the pollution levels rise to very dangerous levels. There is no such quick fix to air pollution. Tanushree Ganguly?
No, I completely second that. And, the worst thing is that this might work as an illusion for people who might feel that, this technology actually works. But unless it's proven, it's validated, unless we have the data to actually substantiate the claim that it can clean up to, 1 kilometer radius around it, I don't think it is a quick fix of a solution unless we really know that it's a solution. I'm just going to take another 30 seconds to run you through an example.
I have 10 seconds to give you, but...
Yes, 10 seconds, all right. So if you take the example of an indoor air purifier, the moment you light up an incense stick or a candle or even a mosquito coil, the indoor air concentration goes up.
Yes.
Now just think about the outside system. It's constantly changing. It's absolutely dynamic. There are hundreds and thousands of cars passing by. People are burning leaves. Somebody is using, coal or angeti to heat themselves or even, stir up a cup of tea. So that dynamism, how does the smog tower take care of it? It's difficult to say.
Okay, Ronak Sutaria, I'll give you 10 minutes, closing comments.
Yeah, okay, so 10 seconds. Rishika, so the point is going to be that this is going to show results. There is no question that there is going to be an effect seen because ultimately, this is very basic first principles. You have a fan, you have a filter, the fan is sucking air, the filter is going to clean that. So, the politicians will be able to show black filters. Time and again, this is something which has been around for 25 years. So this is not like something which has been pulled out brand new. The filters are going to catch your PM particles. There is no doubting that.
Yes.
Now this 1 kilometer radius looks like it's been pulled out of a hat, to be frankly.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't seen a simulation which says that where is this 1 kilometer number come from? Why is it not 500? Why is it not 2 kilometers? My point is that yes, there'll be something to talk about in the upcoming elections.
Right.
Will we breathe easier? We don't know.
Okay, well, will we breathe easier? One doesn't really know. Smog towers, at least from what the panel of experts have said, doesn't look like it is any solution to pollution. And I think the bottom line really is that there is no quick fix for the air pollution problem. One needs to go much deeper. And more importantly, one really hopes that data is made public for, everyone to sort of know the effects of this smog tower that's been erected in Delhi. Thank you all very much for joining us on this edition of FYI.